Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. Your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share a recent conversation with Jesse Byrnes. Jesse is a first-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2027, and he is also a newly elected member of the Executive MBA Student Association. I recently connected with Jesse to talk more about his background, his decision to pursue an MBA, what led him to Darden, how he decided to take on a student leadership role, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful to you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description, links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jesse Byrnes. Jesse, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Brett. Great to speak with you. I've heard a number of episodes from this podcast and delighted to join you for this conversation. You caught me right in the middle of finals week in quarter 3 of the program, which is notoriously one of the hardest of the program, but really excited for this conversation and to share my story.
Yeah, it gets easier from here, I promise. Q3, once you get it in your rearview mirror, I think you're almost halfway to, you're approaching that halfway mark in the program. And then once you get there, you're basically in electives. And once you start electives, you're almost to graduation. So you're basically almost to graduation. Well, I appreciate your time, Jesse. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your exam period. I know some of your classmates will be going on a global residency here pretty soon. I'm actually getting ready to go to Ireland with some of them, which I'm excited about. So tell us a little bit more about you. Who are you? What's your background?
Yeah, well, it's I have definitely a little bit, I think, more of a non-traditional background of a lot of MBA students. I'm a national political journalist. I've been in Washington in the thick of political journalism for more than a decade, and started out as a reporter, was covering the end of the Obama administration, and was kind of a bottom of the totem pole guy when it came to June of 2015, when someone named Donald Trump was making some type of political announcement, and from day one was kind of covering his trajectory rising in politics. And so went on to cover the first Trump administration, the Biden administration, and then now Trump 2.0. And throughout my time, I've been on the editorial side of news as a reporter, as an editor, managing reporters, overseeing our newsletter portfolio, and kind of more recently looking at the long-term strategy for the publication. Work as a senior editor at the Hill newspaper, and really, it's been great to meet just the diverse cohort at Darden and through the executive program. I'm the only journalist in my class, and so it's been really great to just kind of learn more about fellow students coming from so many other different industries and backgrounds.
As a journalist, how did you decide you wanted to pursue an MBA? How that become something that was on your radar?
Yeah, I think it started about 2 years before I formally applied. My wife and I were discussing different academic options, and business school was kind of always one of the things that was on my radar. A friend, actually, at one of the major outlets in town, had kind of told me a story of one of her colleagues who had a similar background, who was on the editorial side of news, kind of working their way up, and was interested in one day, being in an executive role or running a media outlet. And so that story really stuck with me. And she had shared kind of her experience going to Darden. And so I knew that there was a route at Darden, which was, basically here in my backyard in DC, to that really was supporting of media professionals who had that similar interest. And so, many of our jobs working in DC are tangentially related to politics or directly related to politics. And so it was great to just have that experience in knowing someone who also, had the opportunity to get the Bat Media Fellowship to go through the program and to really flex and grow their expertise.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We've had a long run of journalists coming to the Executive MBA program because of the Bad Media Fellowship. It's an incredible scholarship. It covers quite a bit of the experience for folks, and I mean it's an amazing financial opportunity. It's a competitive scholarship, should note, but yeah, it has definitely opened the doors to a lot of journalists, and it feels like a time when the business model for journalism is really being challenged.
Absolutely. It's so much is in flux. And, I knew going into this program that the business of news and media would likely looked at very different by the time I even graduated. And so it certainly, every class where we're talking about AI disruption, we're talking about the need for sustainable business models, it's so pertinent to what I think about day in and day out working at a media company.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, Darden got on your radar because of the Baton Media, other reasons? I'm curious about how you learned about our executive MBA program.
Yeah, well, I definitely, explored many options when it came to the MBA, but Darden really stuck out for a variety of reasons. The media uh, track was certainly one big one for me, but also just understanding more about the case method, understanding more about the professors, the fact that it is so focused on the DC metro area, the alumni community is so engaged. That was something that was told to me as I was considering applying, and it really which revealed itself to be true as I was going through the application process, reaching out to alumni. Everyone was being very responsive and willing to share their own experience, and that just seemed like a welcoming environment that I would certainly feel right at home in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's nice about it being an executive MBA student at Darden is you gain multiple networks, right? Your most immediate networks, your classmates, but then you have other people who've done the executive MBA program, Darden's professional degree programs. Now we have part-time MBA alumni. I kind of know that working professional experience. You also have the full Darden network at your disposal. I would say for your particular situation, you might have this sort of smaller community of people who also come to Darden on the Baton Media, who work in journalism. It's actually quite a number of people who come to our executive MBA program in that category. It's been fun to get to know them, but then you have all UVA alumni too to potentially tap into, and quite a few of those folks here in the DC area. So I always think about the alumni piece in terms of concentric rings in this way.
Yeah, and I'm definitely that's something now that I'm in the thick of the program, really excited to try to foster some of those connections even across cohorts where there's the 130 odd students who are in class with me quarter to quarter, but really the alumni network, the broader Darden network, is much bigger, and so trying to foster those connections as soon as possible is really been a really fantastic experience.
Yeah, I always think about it, really easy to get caught up, 21-month program, busy, you have a lot going on. Talking to people on the podcast and sort of ask them about what do they really regret from the program, like what's something that they wish they would have known more. It's they wish they would have taken more time for the social aspect of the program, right? People oftentimes get really fixated on cases and preparing for class, and that social element can sometimes take a back seat early on in the program. And people realize, oh, wait, that's part of this full value of this experience. And I always try to stress that with prospective students, like sit with somebody different at lunch every day if you can. When you're here in residency, make time to get to know your classmates because that's absolutely part of the value of doing this too.
Absolutely. And the cohort has been fantastic of there's so many different backgrounds represented. You have people from healthcare, private equity, real estate, a lot of military folks. And so just getting to, be at the lunch table with, 5 or 6 students from so many different careers and really experienced professionals. We're all, 10, 20, some of them are 30 years into their careers, and they have so much that expertise that they bring to the table. And it really influences my view of business. It shapes kind of my view of some of the broader, macro issues that we're all grappling with, like AI and how it's really impacting so many different industries so innately.
I'm curious, Jesse, you came to Darden, get back into school mode, using some of those muscles again. What was the adjustment like to being a Darden student, to being in a graduate business environment?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of alumni had said, it was that I had spoken with, said it was kind of a difficult transition for them, and I think I can relate to that. We're all working full time, many are married or have families, we're deeply involved in our communities. And then you layer on top of that full time coursework and at a top-rated school in a subject many of us don't have a background in, and so it is certainly a transition, but it's also been a fantastic experience being back in a learning environment where you are using those muscles again. And so many of us are in the workplace expected to be subject matter experts in so many different topics. And at Darden in the EMBA program, you do bring your expertise to the classroom, to the discussions, but you're also being able to absorb the information in this learning environment. And so it's really the best of both worlds, but certainly a transition period, certainly in the first couple of quarters.
Can you tell me a little bit about the schedule that you sort of honed in on in terms of how you manage your schoolwork and all the other things going on? Do you do a little bit every day? Do you mostly study on the weekends? What does it look like for you?
Well, I think it's probably a moving target, if I'm being honest. Working in news, there's often breaking news, and you really don't know what you're going to get, even on weekends where we're, launching major military operations overseas, and you got State of the Union, election nights, and so just the nature of kind of my work day to day, there's always something unexpected happening, and so I think day to day trying to figure out how to balance that with school is certainly a challenge, but I think there is a lot of room for understanding on the part of the professors who know that many of us have very busy and consuming work lives. We have families, and so balancing that, certainly it's delicate at times, but nights and weekends are kind of consumed with studying. Sometimes, getting up at 4 in the morning is kind of what you need to do to kind of squeeze in that time for school. And so, really it's a full-time commitment in addition to full-time work. But the benefits of it are really, really transformational.
Tell us about the conversations you have with your family about school and how you bring them into this process and help them understand the nature of the commitment.
Well, I have a young daughter who's about 2 now, and so with my wife, we constantly are thinking through current events and how her work is being impacted by AI, how my work is being impacted by AI, and really Darden and in pursuing an MBA, it's not about personal ambition really. It's really like a family pursuit, and so there's so much sacrifice that goes into it on the part of the spouses that I think a lot of us don't talk about enough, and it is a real component of pursuing higher education. And so, but there's, investment on the part of the entire family to really make it happen. And, before even starting school, went to Charlottesville with my family and was able to buy a little t-shirt for my daughter from the Darden, bookstore. And, it's just great to have that experience as a family. And I know, going to graduation, looking forward to, seeing my daughter there too, as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, it is absolutely a family accomplishment for our students with little kids or partners, spouses, significant others. Everybody gets to celebrate on that graduation day. Jesse, do you have a favorite class so far? I know you're early on in core, right? You're just wrapping up quarter three, so about 6 months into the program. But do you have a favorite class, something that you've enjoyed so far from this early slate?
Yes, my strategy class was really great last quarter, and it was really kind of eye-opening as one of the kind of quantitative classes, but the fact that it incorporated more visual components. It was a little bit easier to grasp as someone who maybe doesn't have a quantitative background, but there was still a lot of numbers and a lot of analyses that we were learning, and just frameworks to use just in life. And so that course really, I feel like, gave me a lot of applicable skill sets that I have already started to implement and think through when it comes to my work and trying to think more strategically about different initiatives and where I'm spending my time and things that could benefit, the company's bottom line. And so that's been one that I've thoroughly enjoyed. I've also, just some of the hard skills of learning how to read financial statements through accounting and understanding how, finance works. That has also been a real growth area for me and something that I've really enjoyed.
I appreciate all of those things. I think you made a good point earlier. Most students coming to our program do not have prior background with a lot of things they're going to take during the core. And so you're learning about a lot of new stuff. Some classes will be easier for you, some classes will be harder for you. So when people always ask us how much time do people typically spend on schoolwork outside of outside of class, it's like, well, it can depend. Depends on the person, depends on their background, depends on the classes they're taking. Also depends on what's going on in that person's life. To your earlier comment around about it being a moving target. One of the things, Jesse, about your experience is you decided to put student leadership on your plate as well. So you are a member of the Executive MBA Student Association and one of your class leaders. How'd you make that decision? What led you to say, I want to be involved in that way?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to my kind of non-traditional background, and really from the very first day in Charlottesville for the first leadership residency to start the program. And I kind of was very self-conscious coming into this, thinking, I'm not qualified for this. I don't have the requisite financial experience or the hard skills, and thinking to myself, how do I turn what I view as a liability into an asset? And so thinking like as a journalist, I'm constantly asking questions and getting to know people and issues. And that really aligns with student leadership. You're constantly talking and with your cohort, you're surfacing issues, engaging the faculty, the program team. And so was really interested in the fall to step up as a section rep and start to engage with the program team and the faculty, and then do that at the higher level with the Executive Student Association. And really, this is getting to meet the cohort, understand the challenges, the opportunities that they're focused on, and trying to support them through this executive board is something that I'm really excited about, and excited about the lasting impact that I hope we can achieve, not just for the program, but also trying to foster, deeper connections with business leaders in the DC area and with those in Northern Virginia.
I know it's early for you and Mike in terms of your leadership. You mentioned some things that are on your mind. Like, you have any sort of broad goals, things that you want to say at the end of this experience? Here's how we'd like to lead our class, or how we'd like to contribute to their experience here at Darden.
Well, I think definitely there's a lot to build on from previous student boards. And so we are kind of in that transition process right now of understanding areas where they've found success and where we can kind of move the ball forward. And so I think a lot of career opportunities, fostering deeper connections among alumni, bringing more businesses to Sands Family Grounds and Roslyn on a more regular basis are certainly kind of top of mind for us. But also making it, as you mentioned, networking and the social component of it is a big part of it as well. And so, so many of us, we're at that kind of sweet spot in the program where we are all know each other. We are, already making a bit recommendations for jobs. We're trying to open doors of opportunity for each other. And so, really just leaning into that as much as we possibly can over the next year.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what y'all get into. That's the great thing about student leadership here at the university. It's student self-governance, so students really take the ball and run with it, so to speak. So every executive MBA student association adds something new to the program, kind of helps build out something else. It's been fun having been here for 11 years now, just to kind of see. One, we never, when we first got here, we didn't even have an executive MBA student association, and now we do. And seeing what each group wants to do, and of course, the proliferation of clubs and organizations. I think we have 20 or so student clubs slash interest groups that serve professional degree students. I mean, it's a bit amazing to see all this growth, and it's really a product of student initiative and student leadership. So I look forward to hearing about what y'all get into, Jesse. I'm curious, what are you looking forward to other than your leadership role as you think about the months to come?
Well, I'm definitely interested in just kind of seeing how we can, as a cohort, have more impact with bringing in businesses to the Darden community, but also, really just kind of showcasing for prospective students and for others in the community that Darden offers so many resources, so much that they can take advantage of. And so, for me, I'm very passionate about being in the news industry. And so really sharing about my stories, sharing about my experience so that I can, in some way try to support other individuals in the news media who are maybe interested in the business side of news or are already there, but kind of want to level up their skills and talking to them about, what Darden offers and just kind of the broader community. And, as I kind of mentioned earlier, just making those connections even across cohorts has been so fulfilling, just kind of hearing about folks who are maybe several years ahead of me and their experience through this program, but how we can, continue to learn from each other and continue to sharpen each other's outlook.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jesse. I'm curious. We normally ask for a final piece of advice, but given that you're a journalist and you're doing an MBA program, I'm curious what advice you would have for journalists who may be thinking about pursuing their MBA. Something you would encourage them to think about.
Apply, jump in with both feet. Ask the questions that matter to you, but really give it a shot. A lot of journalists might feel like they don't have it figured out yet if they are looking at kind of the business school, and that's great. That's exactly where you want to be. You want to be in a position where you're open to learning, you're open to growing, and don't be timid. You have questions and want to learn, but you can reach out to alumni. People are so responsive to share about their experience, and it's not business school is certainly, I think, for a lot of folks, myself included, learning some of the hard skills that come with reading financial statements, how to think more strategically, how to balance different stakeholders and groups. These are things that a lot of journalists that come from the editorial side don't really have experience in a lot of that. And so there's a lot of hard skills to learn right away, but there's a lot of other kind of softer skills that you can learn throughout the program, which I would certainly recommend. And don't be timid. Reach out to alumni on LinkedIn. There's 130 students in each class. Someone is going to have a connection or know someone in the program who has kind of had a similar experience that they would love to connect you with. And just kind of get to a point where it's clear to you that this is a transformational experience and it's one worth pursuing.
Yeah, I love all that advice. So often when we ask people for a tip, particularly when we talk to executive MBA students, it's a lot around just do it, because you can spend a lot of time thinking about this. You can spend a lot of time looking for the exact right time to do this kind of program where everything lines up. Spoiler alert, there's not going to be a time like that. There's always going to be stuff. And people always say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. Everybody has an opportunity to learn in this program, regardless of where you're coming from academically, professionally. That's why you're here. And I think that's something that I think is important to remind people about. I think the people know that intuitively, but it can sound a little intimidating when you're on the outside of it. But everybody's here to learn and grow and develop. And when's the last time you were surrounded by 130 people who were all similarly oriented in that way? It doesn't happen every day.
That's right. No, totally.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much for your time. It's great catching up with you, and congratulations to you and Mike again on your electoral victory.
Thank you so much, Brett. Great to spend time with you.
And that was my conversation with Jesse Byrnes, the first-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2027. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, and you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. You can reach at exec, that's EXECMBA@darden.virginia.edu. So next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.